I woke up to the phone ringing, its shrill tone slicing through the stillness of the morning. My eyes cracked open, and I saw Nancy still asleep beside me, her back turned, the curve of her body a familiar comfort in the half-light. I glanced at the clock. 7:15 a.m. Way too early for anyone to be calling. I grabbed the phone, squinting at the screen. Mr. Simmons, my father's lawyer. Carl? His voice was calm, but there was something off about it, like he was holding back something important. Yeah, it's me. What's going on? I'm calling about your father's will. He left you everything. I sat up, heart hammering in my chest. Everything? I repeated, trying to wrap my head around the words. Yes, he said slowly, including the cabin, the land, and a significant portion of his estate. But there's something you should know. Your siblings aren't happy. They've expressed concerns, and I'll explain more when you come in at 10 today. My stomach tightened. What do you mean concerns? It's complicated. There are things I can't go into over the phone. You need to come in, Carl. It's important. Right, I muttered, trying to shake the unease curling up inside me. I'll be there. I hung up, my mind racing, but my eyes flickered to Nancy. She hadn't moved, still buried under the covers like she hadn't heard a thing. I didn't want to wake her, didn't want to tell her yet, not with all the uncertainty already crowding in, but the call had left me feeling uneasy. My father had never been one for surprises, but the way Mr. Simmons talked about it, something wasn't right. I shook my head, trying to dismiss the nagging feeling as I dressed for the meeting. I'd figure it out when I got there. Nancy finally stirred as I walked out of the room, her voice low, almost distant. Everything okay? She asked, her eyes barely opening, the morning fog still heavy on her face. Yeah, just Dad's will. I've got to meet with Mr. Simmons at 10. Uh-huh, she muttered, her eyes already closed again, as if she wasn't really listening. It hit me. Her tone was colder than usual, like something had shifted overnight. But I didn't have time to dwell on it. I had a meeting to get to, and a sinking feeling in my gut that told me this inheritance wasn't just going to be a windfall. I grabbed my coat and walked out of the room, trying to ignore the tightening in my chest. Something was off, and I couldn't put my finger on it yet. But I would. I walked into Mr. Simmons's office at exactly 10 a.m., the air inside thick with dust, and the kind of quiet that makes you feel like the world outside doesn't exist. The office smelled like old leather and stale coffee, and the walls were lined with books, probably more for show than actual use. I sat across from him, trying not to look too nervous, but my hands wouldn't stop fidgeting with the hem of my coat. Simmons gave me a tight smile, the kind that didn't reach his eyes. He shuffled some papers on his desk before speaking. Your father was a very private man, Carl, but he left very specific instructions. I nodded, my throat tight. The mention of my dad made something heavy settle in my chest. I'd spent years trying to live up to him, trying to be the son he'd hoped for, but now I wasn't so sure. His death had changed everything, but this inheritance felt like a whole new kind of weight. Mr. Simmons cleared his throat and began reading from the will. Carl, you are the sole beneficiary of all your father's assets, including the family cabin, the land surrounding it, and his financial portfolio, which is valued at just over $3 million. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. $3 million. It didn't feel real. The land, the cabin, it was all mine now. My head spun for a second as I tried to process it, but Mr. Simmons wasn't done. There's one more thing, he said, leaning forward, his voice lowering like it was a secret. Your father also left you a personal letter. It's marked confidential. He wanted you to read it yourself. I felt the ground shift under my feet. A letter? I hadn't expected that. My father had never been much for personal messages, at least not ones he expected anyone to read after he was gone. He'd kept his thoughts locked up tight, even with me. Mr. Simmons handed me the envelope, and I felt an odd sense of dread as I tore it open. My fingers trembled as I pulled out the neatly folded paper. I glanced up at the lawyer, but he just nodded, urging me to read it. So I did. The handwriting was familiar, my father's precise, almost mechanical script. As I read, my heart clenched in my chest. The words weren't what I expected. Carl, if you're reading this, then I'm gone. I'm sorry for the way things ended, but I need you to understand something. This inheritance, it's not just money or property. It's a shield. You need to protect it. Your mother's family is already circling like vultures, and I fear your wife, Nancy, has learned to play their game. She'll tell you what you want to hear, But Carl, you've been blind to how manipulative she can be. Be careful. Trust her with caution. Trust them with none. If you make the wrong choice, you'll lose everything. Protect what's yours. I dropped the letter, my hands shaking so badly the paper fluttered to the desk. My throat tightened, like I couldn't breathe. My father had been clear. He'd warned me about Nancy and her family. I looked up at Mr. Simmons, but he didn't say anything. He just waited for me to process it, to swallow what I had read. I didn't know what to think. Part of me was shocked, like I had no idea who my wife even was anymore. The other part was filled with this horrible, cold certainty that maybe my father knew something I didn't. Mr. Simmons, I started, my voice barely a whisper. What exactly is it I'm supposed to do with this? With all of it? Simmons' eyes narrowed, like he knew I was struggling to understand. What your father left you is yours to control. But be aware, Carl, there are dangers. And I think you already know who the threats are. The room felt like it was closing in on me, the weight of the will and the letter sinking in deep. This wasn't just about money. It wasn't just about the land or the cabin. It was about trust, about a lifetime of choices I'd made without fully seeing what was right in front of me. I stood up, barely able to process everything that had just been said. The door clicked shut behind me as I stepped into the hallway, and for the first time, I realized I had no idea who to trust. Not Nancy, not my siblings, and not even myself. All I knew was that the future ahead of me wasn't going to be easy. And now, more than ever, I wasn't sure who was on my side. I walked through the door that evening, still feeling the weight of the letter in my chest. Nancy was in the kitchen, her back to me as she stirred something in a pot. The quiet of the house felt different, like the air itself was holding its breath. "How did it go?" she asked without turning around, her voice casual. But I could tell there was an edge to it. I hung my coat up, trying to keep my tone even. It went fine. A lot of paperwork, mostly. I wasn't sure how to say it all. The inheritance, the warning. The words from the letter kept running through my head, and I had no idea where to even start. She turned then, a small smile on her face. But there was something about it that didn't quite reach her eyes. "So, how much?" She took a step toward me, her gaze sharp, like she was already calculating numbers in her head. "How much?" I echoed, frowning. "Nancy, it's not that simple. It's all overwhelming. I need to think about it." She didn't push, but there was a shift in her expression, a flicker of something I couldn't place. "Right, of course." But her voice was tighter now, and I could hear the undercurrent of impatience. "Well, what's the plan for the estate? The cabin? You've got to have a plan." I swallowed, feeling a cold knot in my stomach. "I'm going to look at everything, sort through it." "It's a lot, Nancy." She nodded, but I couldn't shake the feeling she wasn't listening. She was waiting for something. Her calm was starting to feel less like support and more like calculation. It was like she wasn't just curious. She was plotting her next move. I tried to push the unease away. "Look, I'm just trying to figure things out. It's a lot of responsibility all at once." Nancy stepped closer, her eyes narrowing just slightly. "I understand, but we should be thinking about the future, Carl. How are we going to manage it all? We could work together on this." It didn't sound right. It should have been comforting, her offering to help, but it wasn't. The more she spoke, the more I felt like she was already staking a claim on it, on everything. I didn't want to say it, but I couldn't stop myself. "I don't know if that's such a good idea, Nancy." Her expression flickered for a second, a flash of something dark before she masked it with a smile. "What do you mean? We're a team, right?" "Yeah, but..." I didn't finish the thought. I couldn't. I didn't even know what I was feeling, just that something was off. Something was wrong. The next morning, I woke up to my phone ringing, a name flashing on the screen. Gary. My stomach dropped. "What's up, Gary?" I answered, trying to sound normal. "Don't... What's up me, Carl?" Gary's voice crackled through the phone, sharp and bitter. "You think I don't know what's going on? Dad's estate. You got everything, didn't you? All of it. The cabin, the land, everything." I ran a hand through my hair, my heart pounding. "Gary, calm down." "Calm down? You don't get it, do you?" He laughed, but it was a bitter, angry sound. "You think you're the golden boy now, huh? Dad always had his favorites, and now you're just proving it. You got it all, Carl. Everything." I felt my blood start to boil. "It's not like that," I said, my voice low, controlled. "I didn't ask for any of this. It's just how Dad left it. Don't try to play the martyr, Carl. Gary interrupted. You think I don't see what's happening? You've always had the better end of things. You think I'm just supposed to sit back and watch you take it all? I'm not stupid. You've been playing us. The words stung more than I expected, and for a second, I couldn't breathe. It was the same feeling I got when Nancy had asked too many questions the night before. This pressure to give something up, to let go of what was rightfully mine. I'm not playing anyone, Gary, I snapped, the frustration rising. This isn't a game. You're making it into one. You don't see it, do you? Gary's voice was harsh. You think she's not going to try to take it all too? You think Nancy's not plotting something of her own? You've got no idea what you're dealing with. I pulled the phone away from my ear for a second, stunned. It felt like the world was closing in on me. Like I couldn't trust anyone, not even my own brother. I ended the call without another word, the silence after his accusations hanging heavy in the air. It was then that I realized it wasn't just Gary, it was Nancy too. They both wanted control, and they were using guilt to get it. The inheritance wasn't a gift, it was a battleground, and I was stuck in the middle, not knowing who was on my side anymore. The invitation came from Nancy, a simple text. We need to talk. The family wants to meet tonight at 7. I should have known something was off. There was a tightness in her tone, even through a screen, that I couldn't ignore. But I went because I didn't know how to say no, and because I didn't know what else to do. When I showed up, the atmosphere in the house hit me like a wave, a suffocating weight, thick with expectations I wasn't prepared for. Nancy's parents, her brother Dennis, and his wife were all there, sitting around the kitchen table, their faces unreadable, but the air between us felt electric. Nancy didn't greet me like she normally did. She was already at the table, a cup of coffee in front of her, and her eyes weren't warm. She barely even looked up as I walked in, which should have been my first clue that this wasn't just a family chat. Glad you could make it, her dad, Tom, said, but it came out more like a command than a welcome. I didn't respond, just took the empty chair beside Nancy. My pulse picked up as I tried to gauge their moods, trying to figure out what the hell was really going on. Dennis, Nancy's brother, spoke up first, his voice smooth, too smooth. So, Carl, we were talking, and we think it's time to make some decisions about the estate. His eyes flicked to Nancy, who was sitting with her arms crossed, silent. It's a lot of responsibility, and, we've been thinking it might be easier if we manage it together. A joint account, some shared responsibilities. For better oversight, of course. My stomach turned. What do you mean, a joint account? I asked, my voice low but firm. I'm the one Dad left everything to. I don't need to share it with anyone. Tom chimed in, his voice softer but no less insistent. It's just a practical solution, Carl. You can't manage all of this on your own. It's a lot, and with your work and everything else, it makes sense to have family involved, especially since we all want what's best for you. His words were honey sweet, but there was something wrong about them, like he was speaking through a mask. Dennis slid a folder across the table toward me, his eyes glued to mine. I glanced down and saw the papers, contracts, legal jargon, something I didn't want to touch. This is a simple formality, Dennis continued. Just a signature, and everything gets set up properly. Trust us. We're all family here. I stared at the papers, my mind racing. Nancy's cold eyes were locked on me, her gaze never leaving mine, and I felt the pressure mounting, suffocating. Something clicked inside me, a shift in the air, and I realized this wasn't about paperwork. This wasn't a simple family discussion. They weren't asking, they were demanding. Look, I don't think this is what Dad wanted, I said, pushing the papers back. I don't need anyone else involved in this. I'll handle it myself. Nancy's face froze for a second, then shifted, the mask slipping just enough for me to see the calculation in her eyes. You're being difficult, Carl. Why are you making this harder than it has to be? Her voice was flat, almost accusing. It's not just about the money. This is about the family, our family. You can't just shut us out. I'm not shutting anyone out, I snapped, my anger flaring. But I'm not signing anything. I'm not going to let you take control of something that's mine. It's my father's will, my decision. Dennis leaned back in his chair, a smirk playing at the edge of his lips. It's funny, Carl, he said slowly, his words like a jab. You always act like you've got it all together, like you're the golden boy, but you're not. You don't have all the answers, and I think deep down, you know it. Nancy's eyes turned hard, her expression turning colder than I'd ever seen. It's disappointing. All we're trying to do is help, and you're being stubborn. You're not thinking about us. about the family. The room seemed to close in on me, the weight of their words pressing down. It was like they had been planning this for months, expecting me to cave, but I wasn't about to bend. "I'm not signing anything," I repeated, my voice steady now, but my blood was running cold. "Not unless I'm sure it's what Dad wanted." Nancy's face twisted, her lips thinning into a tight line. The silence stretched, thick with tension. Her voice, when it came, was sharp, more cutting than I'd ever heard it. "I guess I'm just not important enough for you to trust. I thought we were a team, Carl. But I guess I was wrong." Her words hit like a slap, and I felt my chest tighten. "This isn't about trust, Nancy. It's about control. You and Dennis, and your whole family, trying to take what's mine. But I'm not going to let you." I stood up, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. "I'm done here," I said, my voice ringing in the stillness. "You want control of the estate, you'll have to fight me for it. But it's not happening today." I could feel their eyes on me as I turned and walked out, my heart pounding. As the door slammed behind me, I felt something crack inside. I didn't know what this meant for me, for Nancy, or for the future. But I knew one thing. This wasn't just a family discussion. It was a battle, and it was only just beginning. The days after the family meeting felt like a blur. Nancy was on me constantly. Every phone call, every text, pushing, pressing. "Have you thought about it? Have you made a decision? We need to act fast, Carl. We can't wait forever." It wasn't just her either. Her parents and Dennis kept calling too, always making it sound urgent. I felt like I was drowning in demands, in their expectations. They wanted me to make quick decisions, to sign something, anything, just so they could get their hands on the estate, the money. And every time Nancy spoke to me, her voice had this sharp edge to it, like she was growing impatient. The way she'd ask about the land or the cabin, her eyes scanning me for any sign that I'd give in. It was suffocating. It felt like she was closing in on me, trapping me into doing what she wanted. I didn't know how to fight it. I didn't know how to fight her. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how long this had been going on, how much she'd always controlled. The decisions about our house, our finances, the way she'd always pressured me into doing things her way. But now, with the inheritance on the line, it was different. I had more to lose, and I was starting to see things clearly for the first time. She wasn't just my wife, she was a manipulator, and I'd let her do it for years. I needed help. I wasn't equipped to handle this on my own. I reached out to Tony, an old friend who used to be a lawyer. We'd lost touch over the years, but I remembered how sharp he was. He picked up on the second ring. "Carl, what's up, man? Long time." "Yeah, I know. Listen, I need some advice. Legal stuff, it's complicated." There was a pause, then a sigh on the other end. I figured, all right, lay it on me. I explained everything, my father's will, Nancy, her family, the pressure they'd been putting on me. I told him how I felt like I was being suffocated, how I was starting to question everything. "You've been manipulated, Carl. It's pretty clear," Tony said, his voice steady. "And this inheritance? It's yours, not theirs. You need to slow down, take a step back. Don't make any decisions without getting your own lawyer involved. Protect yourself." I exhaled, feeling like a weight had been lifted off my chest. It was the first time anyone had told me to take control instead of just giving in. I hadn't realized how much I needed to hear it. "All right, thanks, Tony. I'll do that. I'll get my own lawyer." After I hung up, I didn't waste any time. I called around, set up meetings, and by the end of the day, I'd hired someone who would look out for me, who would help me protect the inheritance. I felt a small flicker of hope as I realized I was finally doing something for myself. The next few days were quieter, at least on Nancy's end, but I knew it was only a matter of time before she started pushing again. I wasn't done, not by a long shot. The trust was being set up to protect my assets, and I wasn't going to let her or her family take control of it. But Nancy wasn't giving up, not yet. I could feel the tension in the house, the coldness between us. She was waiting for me to cave, to let her win. But for the first time, I felt like I was making the right choices, the ones that would protect me, not her. I wasn't sure what the future held, but I was done letting other people make decisions for me. This was my life, my future, and for the first time in a long time, I was taking control. But I knew Nancy. I knew she wasn't done pushing yet. It was a Tuesday when my lawyer called with the news, and it hit me like a freight train. Nancy had been talking to her own attorney behind my back, and now she was trying to set up a joint trust. No consultation, no discussion. Just a lawyer's letter in my inbox, pushing for a decision, demanding my signature. I felt the blood drain from my face as I hung up the phone. She'd crossed a line. This wasn't about family anymore. This was about control, and she was taking it. That night, I came home early, hoping to catch her before she could spin any more webs. I found Nancy in the living room, flipping through a magazine, pretending to be unaware of the storm brewing. "Nancy," I said, my voice tight, "we need to talk." Her eyes didn't even lift from the page. "What about?" I couldn't stand the nonchalance in her voice. "Don't play dumb. You've been talking to an attorney. You've been trying to set up a joint trust behind my back." Her head snapped up then, her eyes narrowing, the calm mask falling away. "I'm trying to help, Carl. I'm trying to make sure everything is handled properly." I took a step forward, my fists clenched. "Handled properly? Without me? Without my consent?" My voice was rising now, but I didn't care. "You've been going behind my back. You've been plotting this from the beginning." Her face flushed, but she didn't back down. Instead, she stood up and crossed her arms, a defensive gesture. "You're being selfish, Carl. You've had everything handed to you, and now you're acting like you're some kind of martyr. You've ruined this family." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Ruined it? You're the one trying to take everything I've got. Everything Dad left me." She shook her head, her voice getting sharper, colder. "You don't get it, do you? This isn't just about money. This is about family. You're so caught up in your greed that you're willing to destroy everything. What happened to us, Carl? What happened to the team we were? You've changed." Her words hit me like a punch. I could feel the manipulation rising in my chest, like bile. She'd been doing it for years, guilt-tripping me, twisting things, using emotions as weapons. But this was the final straw. "You think I'm the selfish one?" I asked, voice shaking with fury. "You've been manipulating me for years, Nancy. You've made every decision for this family, every financial move, and now you want to take everything I've got. Don't act like you're the one who's been reasonable." I saw the flash of anger in her eyes, and it was like a switch flipped. I'd spent too long feeling guilty, feeling like I had to apologize for protecting what was mine. I was done. "No, Nancy," I said, my voice cold. "You're the one who's ruined this. You've been using guilt and manipulation to control me, and I'm done letting you do it. I'm not signing anything. I'm not giving you control, and I'm not going to pretend like everything's okay anymore." Her face went white, her breath catching in her throat. "What do you mean you're done?" I looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time in what felt like forever. The woman I married, the person I thought I knew, was standing in front of me, and all I could see was a stranger who had used me, used our family, to get what she wanted. "I'm done with this marriage," I said, the words feeling foreign but necessary. "I can't trust you anymore. You've crossed too many lines. I'm going to take full control of the inheritance, and if that means we have to go our separate ways, then so be it." Nancy's eyes widened, and for a moment, she looked like she might collapse. But then, the mask slipped back on, just enough for me to see the rage beneath. Her jaw clenched, her fists balled at her sides. She opened her mouth to say something, but then stopped, the words dying on her lips. I turned, walking toward the door, but not before I heard her last words, sharp and cutting. "You'll regret this, Carl. You're throwing away everything." I didn't turn around. I couldn't. As I walked out of the house, I felt a cold calm wash over me. The storm inside me was still there, but now it was directed, focused. I wasn't sure what would come next, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was in control, and that was something I wasn't willing to give up again. I moved into the apartment a few days later, the space small but clean, a stark contrast to the house I'd left behind, just silence. And strangely, it was the first time in a long time I felt like I could breathe. The divorce papers were filed soon after. It was almost anticlimactic, the legal steps taken, the forms signed. But it was a relief, a weight lifted from my shoulders. I wasn't free yet, not completely. There was still the mess with the inheritance to deal with, and I knew Nancy wasn't going to give up without a fight. But I wasn't going to let her control me anymore. I worked with my new lawyer to get everything secured. The inheritance went into an irrevocable trust, completely out of her reach. I set it up with the intention of protecting it, my father's legacy, my future. Nancy couldn't touch it now. and it felt like I was finally taking control, not just of the money, but of my life. For the first time in ages, I was making decisions for me. With the money from the inheritance, I took a leap, a risk I hadn't been able to take before. I opened a small woodworking shop. My father had always loved working with his hands, creating things out of raw materials. It felt right, like a part of him was still with me. The shop wasn't much at first, just a small space, a few tools, and a lot of sweat. But something about it felt like coming home. It became my focus, my escape, and in a way, my salvation. Slowly but surely, word got around, and the business started to grow. People liked what I made. They appreciated the craftsmanship, the care I put into each piece. It wasn't fast money, but it was honest work, and that was all I needed. I found myself more at peace than I had been in years. The shop gave me purpose, something solid to hold on to. And when the weight of my past crept back, I just threw myself into the work. Months went by, and I kept hearing whispers through the grapevine. Nancy and her family had tried to contest the will, tried to tear it apart, claiming that my father had been coerced, that the inheritance wasn't fair. But nothing came of it. Their efforts failed, as I knew they would. I didn't take pleasure in their defeat. It wasn't about that, but there was something quiet inside me that finally felt right. They'd tried to take everything from me, and they'd lost. Nancy lost. She got nothing. And that, in a twisted way, felt like justice. I had everything I needed now. Control over my own life, my own future, and a business that I could build from the ground up. My dignity was mine again, and I didn't have to share it with anyone. I still thought about everything we'd been through, but I couldn't change the past. All I could do was make sure the future was better, and that was enough for me. It wasn't a clean break, but it was the start of something new, something I could finally call my own.